Hello and welcome back to my art channel. In today's video I'm going to be addressing a question I got from a viewer a few weeks ago who was having trouble painting light objects in shadow. And so I'm going to show you some tips today for how to create shadows on objects that are either white or yellow, or in other words very light in color, because that can be something that sometimes beginning artists struggle with. So let's get started. So quickly, the colors that I'm going to be using today are titanium white, cadmium yellow light, yellow ochre, chromatic black. You could also use ivory black if you have that, that's fine. Burnt sienna, and ultramarine blue. So the thing to remember with white objects, we'll start with the white objects first, is that your shadow color is going to depend a lot on the temperature of the lighting. So there's certain color leanings that the shadow is going to have depending on whether the light is warm or cool, or the shadows are warm or cool. So with a white object indoors in a still life, the shadow on a white object is going to be mostly gray, but that gray is always going to have some color to it, again, depending on the temperature of the ambient light. So, for example, in this little painting that I did, this little mini painting, you can see this is a cool light here. Now, this is like a Chinese ginger jar with the blue on it. And in the areas of the shadow, because the light and the shadows in this painting are cool, in here it's mostly gray, but I also blued it down with some ultramarine. So it's not just flat gray, because then it's not going to look right, because even white objects in light always have some color in them. So you almost always want to put a tiny little bit of color in your white, because it's never just white. So this is an example in practice where I used a cool shadow on a white object. And a lot of times these shadows on these light objects are going to be darker than you think they are. So don't be afraid to make it dark, because you can always lighten it up if you need to. But a lot of times beginners struggle with making their shadows too light. And that's a problem you commonly see with artists who are just starting out, is they don't make their shadows dark enough. So if you're going to paint a white object in cool light, I'm going to add just a tiny bit of yellow ochre to this white, just to warm it up a little bit. Because as I said, white objects are never really white. Okay, that's better. Okay, so I'm going to start with a cool light white object. So we could take a little bit of black and a little bit of ultramarine blue and mix those together. And put in the shadow. I'll just make a ball shape here. So and then you can use your white color to paint into that. So now you can see that the shadow on this object just blend it a little bit, so that's a cooler shadow. So if you had cool light, then you're going to use and again, experiment with different combinations, and It will always depend on the lighting of the particular setup, but that's kind of a sort of a go-to combination you can use is gray, black with a blue, so you get a cool gray. Now with a warm white, or a white object in warm light and warm shadows, you can use that same white color. Let's make some more of that. Because I don't want that to be pure white, because then it never looks right. Okay, so a good kind of go-to color for white, a good combination that you can use a lot of times, and you can skew it either cool or warm, is for shadows on a white object, is black mixed with yellow ochre. And that makes a little bit of a greenish, slightly, but it's a good shadow color for white, especially in warm light. If you keep the mixture more toward a yellow ochre color, this is actually a really good shadow color for shadows on white flowers. So if you're painting white flowers, this makes a great color combination, that yellow ochre and black in the shadow. And again, you can add more black to make it cooler, or you can add more yellow ochre to keep it warmer. You know, in this particular mixture, I've got a lot of yellow ochre in here, so you can see that. But you could also add more black to that shadow color and make it cooler. If you had it, you know, wanted a cooler object, you know, or you had cooler areas of the shadow. You know. Like that. So you can use that combination of yellow ochre and black to shadow white objects. And that's, you know, like I said, you know, just by varying the degrees of black and yellow ochre in the mixture, that's a good sort of go-to shadow color that you can use for white objects, especially in warm light and especially in white flowers. That tends to work really well. Now for the yellow objects, I'm going to pause here and clean my brushes, and I will be right back. Okay, I'm back with some clean brushes. So let's talk about the yellow objects. So the yellow object, like if you're painting a lemon or yellow flowers, a good warm shadow color for yellow is, you can start with a little yellow ochre, but a great way to shadow yellow and warm is to add burnt sienna, because burnt sienna is really kind of a dark, dull orange yellow, so it's moving the yellow toward that dull color, but you're keeping the warmth in it. Because if you were to mix your yellow with, let's say, like black, you know, like some colors you can shade them by mixing them with a little bit of black. If you mix yellow with black, you're going to get green. And it doesn't, sometimes that can work okay, but a lot of times that doesn't, it ends up looking a little funny. Although the yellow and black green combination makes a great green for landscapes. So that, just keep that in mind if you're a landscape. You want to be a landscape artist. So let's make this even darker over here with some more burnt sienna. So if you're painting, like I said, if you're painting a yellow object and your shadow is warm, your light is warm, then adding that little yellow ochre and burnt sienna to the mix is a good shadow color for the yellow. Shadows always look better if you blend See, so, in other words, it starts to look like yellow in shadow rather than just a different color. So that's if your shadows are warm, you can use that yellow ochre and burnt sienna combination. And then in cool light, you can go a little bit greenish, but you don't want to go too green. So for that, I would go back to that same combination of the yellow ochre and black that I used for the white object. You can also use that for a yellow object. I would just keep it definitely more toward the yellow side. It looks, I can already see on the camera, it looks greener on the screen than it does in person. So just keep in mind my camera doesn't have the best color reproduction. It looks much greener on your screen than it really does in person. So this is kind of so we can go back in here with the yellow. And because you're getting that cool greenish tone from the black, but it isn't overly green, it really does make a nice shadow for that yellow. So and it looks cool, but it looks correct. It looks like yellow in cool shadow. Because what would happen if I just mix the yellow with black, I'll show you what happens. If you just mix this yellow with straight black, it's going to go green-green. See, and that's almost like, the color that you could use for, like, leaves or something on trees. So, I mean, that's much greener, at least to my eye when I'm looking at it in person. This is far more green than this. Which is mostly yellow ochre with some black to cool it down. So that's a good shadow color for yellow in cool shadows. And the other thing, too, that I didn't mention before, I probably should have mentioned it, is if you're a landscape painter and you're painting white objects outdoors, so let's get some, like a white object in the sunlight, like let's say a building in sunlight, or snow, something like that. You have, like, let's say you have a box, and this is a box in sunlight. Then a great outdoor shadow color for white is just to add ultramarine blue, because ultramarine blue is kind of violety. So it really works well as a shadow color for white, because even though technically the sunlight is white and the sun is white, there's something in our brains that because of the warmth of it, we kind of perceive it as yellow even though it's really white. So consequently, the shadows in white outdoors, they're reflecting the sky, but they're also, you're seeing them contrasted against the yellow light. They tend to look violety blue. So just a little white mixed with ultramarine makes a great shadow color for white outdoors. So you could see this being a white building or something where the sun was coming in from this direction and hitting this one, and this plane is in shadow. And again, you can also use that same color for snow if you're painting the shadow side of a snowy hill or something like that. So anyway, I hope that you found this video helpful for painting light colors in shadows, and that it will help you in your own painting. So I thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Thanks so much for watching. Go ahead and click on that subscribe button so you won't miss the next video. And why not spread the joy? Be sure to share my videos on your favorite social media. Don't forget to head on over to my website, walcottfineart.com, where you can see my art, read my blog, or when you join my newsletter list, you can win free art. Every month, I'll choose a lucky winner from my email list, and that person will receive a mini original oil painting. There's a chance to win every month, so be sure to sign up today so you don't miss out. Plus, you'll get my fun newsletter. See you next time!